Hey, hello everyone, and welcome to the sixth installment in our recruiting and retention series. This month's topic is two promises your brand must make to attract today's top talent. So glad to see so many familiar faces and names in the crowd today. Please, as always, use the chat function. If I'm speaking, Paul's going to be moderating the chat room. When he's speaking, I'll do the same. We like to take questions as we go. And so, yeah, throw any comments right in there, raise your hand, and we'll make sure we get to that question as we're moving. But we'll also have time at the end of the session as well to take your questions. So when we think about this idea of two things you have to promise, what we have to remember is that I don't know about you, Paul, but I know when I'm out and about, I hear this. I hear people telling me, "Oh, these younger generations, and they're so entitled and they demand everything." But I mean, what I see, and I know what you see, Paul, is that it's really about fulfilling their needs as we fulfill the needs of the company.
Yeah, times have changed and people's expectations have changed, but also, I mean, the way they interact and the way that the way that they experience working and life in general, and with the lines blurring between work life and home life, there's just so many things we have to navigate today. So what we're seeing is that the old practices that worked really well up until, I don't know, what how long ago do you think it was, like 10, 15 years
Yeah,
ago,
give or take. Yep.
and people are still trying to use them. Well, they really fall flat, and
Yeah.
people are getting crickets when they put job postings out there. And so there's new rules, and we're here to
Mhm.
share with you what you can do.
Yeah. And one quick story, everyone. I was actually in a presentation yesterday, and a young lady came up to me afterwards. She said, "Ed, I have to share this story with you. I had applied for a job, got through the phone screen, went in for a live interview. And the lady who was in the HR function was so rude and demeaning that I knew pretty quickly this was not going to be a culture fit for me. And so we weren't 10 or 15 minutes in, and she said, "Ma'am, I'd like to thank you for your time. This is clearly not a fit. So I think I'd like to leave now." The lady actually said to her, "I didn't give you permission to end this interview." Can you believe that?
Wow.
And she said, "Well, ma'am, I don't need your permission to leave." And I said, "Did you run out of the place?" I mean, to
Wow.
me, some people would say, "Well, that's this younger generation being demanding." Yeah, maybe they are being demanded or demanding respect, like all of us. Why wouldn't you want to have that level of respect? So that's the kind of thing that's happening out there, folks. And trust me, if you know me well enough, I don't make stuff up because I'm not that creative of a guy. These stories that we're going to tell, it's all things that Paul and I have been through over the years. So here's the thing: you are in the right place for the next hour if your culture and your employee experience aren't quite where you want them to be. Maybe there's a disconnect there between the two, or maybe the culture itself isn't where you want it to be. Those things are pretty important to not only have developed, but to have in sync with one another. Maybe you've got a lot of great employees and they love your place, but you can't seem to find new people. Again, there must be a disconnect somewhere. And usually that has something to do with you're hiding your light under the bushel basket. You're not telling the world how great it is. And so when someone gets in, they see it, but we've got to learn to share those things with the outside world. And those are the things that Paul and I are going to talk to you about today. And then finally, that your culture is so good, it's in such a great spot, that if people knew about it, they'd be knocking your door down to come work for you. And yeah, there are companies that have that reputation. And they're not just the big names that maybe you hear about in the news or whatever that are the poster children for this. I mean, there are local mom and pops in your neighborhoods that have great reputations as places to work. And not just for, say, highly professional positions, but every position you can think of. My daughter has a part-time job in a little coffee shop in Delhi, and she's been saying, hey, there's another little deli in town. I'd like to go work there because I'm hearing really cool things about how they take care of their people and the regular customers that come in. So just because you don't have, say, a big brand name that everyone recognizes or whatever, you're saying, gosh, Ed, we're just this little organization. That's okay. You can still work on your culture and be that place that word gets around that this is a good place to be hanging out at. So, why do we do this? And we share this with you every month. But I mean, I don't know about you, Paul. I think it's important that we talk about it. I mean, first off, this is free. Paul and I don't intend to make money off of these things. We like to share value with folks. We like to tell folks what's going on out there because ultimately we do want to make a difference. We believe that there is a huge opportunity for organizations who can up the level of quality in their workplaces for their people because ultimately they thrive. And that's what thrills the two of us. I think for those of you that have been in a number of our webinars to date, you see that shine through that we really enjoy it when we're working with a client and things start to click for them. There's a lot of professional satisfaction that comes from that. So just as a quick tag for you, next month, put it on the calendar, get registered. Next month's webinar is revolutionizing your recruitment strategy with 4 pillars. And we're going to talk about those 4 pillars. And if you erect those pillars, you're going to crush your competition. So it's another Wednesday at noon there on July 12th. So mark your calendars. You'll also get a reminder email on that. So what are we going to talk about today? Well, first off, the old school business processes that you have probably kept in place just because in the past they worked, we're going to figure out, and we're not going to figure out, we're going to show you why they're not working today. They worked, let's say pre-COVID. They maybe worked 10 years ago, but they're not working now. And most employers don't know anything different. They don't know what to change in order to get things to work. We're going to show you how to get those things to work. Second, we're going to talk a lot today about social media, and that has been a theme for us, if you think about it over these last several months, is the effect of social media on our recruiting. And we're going to share with you the playbook that you need to stop allowing other companies to outshine you. That's the reality. And you don't need a big budget. It's not about competing necessarily with the big boys and what they can do if you're, say, a medium-sized or a small-time employer. Doesn't matter, okay? We're going to show you the playbook that's going to help you to shine in the midst of your competition. And finally, one of the benefits of doing all this is that you're going to open up your talent pool. And so, when we talk about a diverse applicant pool, I think about diversity in every sense of the word diverse. And so what we want to make sure we're doing is that we're not getting those folks who aren't truly interested in working for us. And we want to get rid of the people who are just putting their toe in the water to see what's going on. We want folks that are applying because, hey, I can do this job. And most importantly, I want to do it for you. And so we're going to talk to you about how to make that happen today. So why should you pay attention for us? Well, there are a couple of new faces and names in the room. So my name is Ed Crow. I am the talent transformation expert for companies seeking 8-figure growth. And one of the things I absolutely love about the work that I do with my clients is, yes, seeing them thrive, but seeing them adapt to changing business conditions and helping them through that change process to bring their leadership team up to speed and their HR strategy put in place so that they can thrive. And that's what I love doing about my job, and it's why I love doing these webinars. So Paul, why don't you let the folks who are new here know a little bit about you?
Yeah, so I'm Dr. Paul Newton, and the doctor is because I'm a chiropractor by trade. So back in 1997, when they let me out of school and set me out loose on the population at large, I just saw that people were going to work and going to their jobs, and We had like the education system, and everything just seemed to be geared towards a way of thinking and being that seemed out of date. But that's, that was still a long time ago. But over time, what I've seen is just that people coming into the office, aches, pains, complaints, like there was a physical, mental, and emotional toll that working in a job that you didn't like or you didn't enjoy, it took on the body. And I was treating people for that. And as I listened to people and they told me the stories about what was happening, I was thinking, well, I mean, you could just get so much more out of people if you treated them good. If you were nice to them and you inspired them to do their best work. And it kind of became a passion of mine to figure out, well, what would it take to get people doing their best work for you? And that's just something that Ed and I really connected on when we ended up working together. And what we've discovered is that when we get together in a workplace and we find out what's really good here and why do people really enjoy being here, these are things that you can't pay to get put into your workplace. It just has to be brought out of people, and you can't just make it up. It has to be there. And so that's what I've really enjoyed doing, is listening to people, finding out what they really love about the places that they work. And then Ed and I work together and we figure out, how do we make more of this happen in this workplace? And that's what we'll be sharing with you today. It's the stuff that you just want people to be sharing on their social media. You want them to be telling the world about, because if they showcase how great it is to work for you, you don't even have to do anything.
Yeah.
So let's get right into it.
Thanks, Paul.
So what are the old school business processes you have that stop people from applying? And I guess the big thing is that, the world's changed so much that it's hard to keep up and to figure out, well, what are we doing today? What do we have to start doing to just be on par with everybody else? And the big thing is it's almost impossible to stay on top of everything. But the one thing that is unchanging is people. And people have these wants and desires and hopes and dreams, and they do want to thrive. And if we keep that alive in people, they'll give all that they have. And that's something that you can get out of them. And it's not going to cost you an arm and a leg. I mean, you have to be fair, and you have to pay fair market value for what they're delivering on. But you don't have to bend over backwards. You don't have to keep paying more to keep people, because if you really focus on that drive inside of human beings to want to do good work and solve problems, they will commit everything, and they will enjoy their work, and they'll help you thrive.
And Paul, one of the comments that's just coming in here is someone saying that their bosses do not allow them to interview via Zoom. Like, it has to all be live interviews. And the theory is that, you can't really get to know someone, over a computer screen. And I can see both sides of that argument, honestly. But in this day and age, when it's all about how quickly can we get someone interviewed or get them to the next interview, if someone's out of town and someone's here and someone's there, then Zoom is our best option. And, I don't know about you. I mean, sure, I like to sit down and shake hands and get to know people. And the sooner the better. But to me, that's an old school business. It's a great example of an old school business process that holds things up. And people, in this case, they've applied, but it's keeping them from moving forward in the process as quickly as we need them to.
Yeah. And I mean, just you and me, Ed, we must have known each other and worked together for like 3 years before we met in person.
We ever shook hands, I know.
Yeah.
And I think most of Paul's up in Canada and I'm here in Pennsylvania, and it works. I mean, we do great work. We think we do great work together for our clients, and yet we don't have to necessarily be live to make that happen. And, being a guy who values the social aspect of things, Yeah, it would be nice if Paul and I could sit across a desk from each other and work on occasion, but we make this work. And you're seeing it more and more, quite frankly, of people making things work from a remote environment, obviously since COVID. And so,
right? And
things have changed, to your point, Paul, that what worked 5 years ago isn't working today. And one of the other things though that I have seen that's interesting is that also in the session I was conducting yesterday, someone said, Ed, one of the things I'm seeing is that the millennials, they want the live interviews. They actually want, or excuse me, not the millennials, the Gen Zs want the live interviews. So they don't mind doing a Zoom, but they're craving. So the whole Zoom interview process is new school, but we're seeing some of the new generation saying we want some old school stuff, right? So who's to say what's right and what's wrong, except knowing what your people want and the candidates you're trying to bring in want.
And that's the whole hybrid thing that we're seeing now, where, are people working from home? Are they working from the office? Well, there's benefits to both. And there's places where it makes sense to be at home. And there's interactions that really just, they have to happen in person. And so, we can't just rule on one way or the other and say this is how it is anymore. It has to make sense. And if we actually rely on people's judgment and we teach them how to use it in the context of our culture and how things work here, then we can have people making the right decisions for the company first and for themselves second, and always doing the right thing and learning from things that didn't work so well. And if you do that, you don't have to policy the crap out of everything and try and stay on top of everything they do. Right.
Exactly.
And so that's the key. And that's why we'll be talking about culture. So let's talk about that. So back in the past, right, the way of recruiting was post and hope or post and pray, and I heard you talk about that, so that's maybe you could speak to it a little.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, and I'm not going to ask for a show of hands in the in the room here because I don't want to incriminate the guilty, but I want you guys to think about how often you take your job posting and you put it out on Indeed or wherever you're posting, maybe your company website and such. You hit post, and then you sit there and you look at your computer screen. And you're hoping and praying that there's going to be some resumes rolling in. And there will be resumes rolling in, obviously. Are they the right resumes? Are they timely? I mean, those are the challenges. And so, one of the things that we're going to share with you today, and Paul's going to take a deep dive here shortly, is that this post and hope, that's not a strategy. Yes, you've got to post job ads. Absolutely you do. But merely hoping that by posting it, you're going to draw in what you need is not a strategy whatsoever. It's a very reactive type of situation. And in one of the sessions I recently conducted, one of the ladies said, "Oh yeah, and I'm getting lots of applicants. Ain't none of them what I want." And so in her case, she's not just hoping someone applies, she's hoping she gets a qualified candidate. Well, if we can do some of the things Paul's getting ready to talk about, we're going to up the odds of you getting not only the numbers of applicants that you need to really pick a quality person, but upping the quality of those applicants.
Yeah, so obviously, there's skill sets that are needed for jobs, and there are certifications or levels of education that are absolutely necessary, and we realize that. But I mean, usually when people are just hired based on skill and nobody's considering how they fit into the culture, things end badly. And that's what we're seeing because people are so desperate these days because there aren't a whole lot of applicants coming in. They're ready to hire anyone, and it's become a bidding war. We're seeing like people are leaving for higher pay because they can ask for almost anything they want, and they're getting it. And we want to show you how you can jump off that wheel and stop playing that game, because you really should. If you keep bending over backwards and giving people what they want, they'll keep asking for more, and you're not going to get more quality out of them. They're just waiting to see what the next offer is.
Exactly.
When you focus on the culture, though, people realize that they can't pay for that.
Mm-hmm.
And when they find a good one, they're going to want to stay. So
Yep.
let's jump into the culture and talk about what that is. Now, one thing that Ed and I have really come together to work on is the employment brand. And this is the way that you market your company or your organization to the people you want to attract. And it's a combination of two things: your culture and the experience that the employee has when they're participating in the culture. And I'm going to talk about culture. Ed will get into what employee experience is and what it isn't. But those two come together and they create a brand, an employment brand. And what you'll see is that your employment brand or the culture is what you use to attract employees. And on the next slide, I just pulled some slides out of HubSpot's culture deck. So if you can just flip that slide there. Ed,
yeah, and real quick, so right here, as Paul said, these two things, we said that today was all about two things. These are it: culture, employee experience. So the rest of our time together, these are the two things that we're going to focus on to nail your employment brand.
Yeah. So the first promise you need to make to people is that you have a culture and that you're going to like this culture. Mm-hmm. So HubSpot, which is, they're actually the marketing platform or the CRM platform that we use to mail our the notices about these webinars out on. Anyway, they're quite well known for having a great culture and for being a really great place to work. And interestingly, they're not known as the highest paid place to work, but people still like them. But what they say in their culture deck is that culture is to recruiting as product is to marketing. So customers are more easily attracted with a great product, and amazing people are more easily attracted with a great culture. Yeah. So how do you do this? How do you create a great culture that you market? And it really starts with the unique factors that you have and things that are unique to you, and talking about them. And what I really, really loved about diving into HubSpot's culture and investigating them, because that's what we were doing a few webinars back, was just looking for places where the employee experience or the candidate experience on the company website was really good. And with HubSpot and Salesforce, a couple of CRM companies, they really outlined on their website how it looked inside the company. They showed what it would be like to start working for us before you even set foot on the premises.
Yep.
And HubSpot had this whole deck that was about 150 slides talking about what culture means to them. And I was just blown away by the things that they were sharing. They were so transparent. So I'll just show you the first slide in that culture deck. And as I dug into it more, I found some more decks from other companies, like some of the big names that are out there, and the people that oftentimes smaller companies are afraid, well, we can't compete with them. But the fact is, you can. You just need to tell people how good it is to work with you. And what I found is that these culture decks are really focused around the things that the company values and what they really believe in, the things that give them purpose, and where people can really develop their mastery in the company. And these are things that people are seeking out. We're talking about how these millennials are not millennials anymore, even just the Generation Z, but the new generations coming into the workforce, they seem entitled, or they're demanding, and they don't want to work, or they don't want to settle for anything. They do. You just need to find out what motivates them and drives them to want to give their all. And it all focuses around three things. It's autonomy, developing mastery, and purpose. And if you can show people that that's going to happen in your organization, that's going to happen for them, they're going to be committed, and they'll want to show up fully and give their all.
Yeah.
So I'll show you.
I love this tagline here too, Paul. Creating a company we love. That's a very inclusive statement. We means everybody. to me. When I see that, it's like, oh, okay. We want to love our company. Even got the orange heart in HubSpot orange there on it. I mean, even just this one slide to me is so clear. Like, and it's not our culture want, it's our code. It's like a code of conduct almost that facilitates our culture. I mean, even the wording here is very unique and very meaningful. When you just look at it and you process it. And when you first shared this with me, I was like, this is really cool. Like just one slide, but the wording they've chosen is very cool, and it pulls you in.
And their whole deck, really, it's humble, and yet at the same time really states where they want to be and what they want to build. And it's inviting, because it invites people to contribute what they have to the growth, and they realize that a lot of the things that they have in their values are on the wish list. They don't exist yet, so they're hoping for your contribution to the company to help it grow.
Yeah.
And another company that has a really great culture code, and you can find these decks posted online, or if you look at their recruiting or the employment site on their website, they'll be stating what it's like to be here. And the funny thing, and this really grabbed me here, Netflix, they say, well, many companies have nice sounding value statements displayed in the lobby, such as integrity, communication, respect, excellence. And I bet you, if you know what your core values are, or if you go back and look at your core values, you probably have a couple of these words in your core value statements. In fact, they're so common that they're probably painted on the wall or in the lobby in a lot of companies. Yeah. But the next slide just blew me away in their culture deck, because those were the values that were painted on the wall for Enron. Right. Remember the story around that, where the leaders went to jail and there was major fraud and the company went bankrupt and people died and all sorts of crazy things.
A lot of people. Yeah.
So clearly, integrity, respect, excellence, and communication were not the values of Enron, even though they were up on the wall. And too often, coming up with the core values is just an exercise when a company starts. And walking the talk and living those values isn't that important. But what I'd like to show you is that when it comes to culture, this is what it's built on. And culture is really a set of values that everybody agrees that this is how we do things. This is who we are. This is how we behave and how we act. And what's really powerful with Netflix is they took it a step further. And they turned their core values into actions and behaviors, which actually, when you teach people how to use the values, so this is just one core value, courage. One of their values as courage, now they explain to you how to use courage. They say you make tough decisions without agonizing or long delay. You take informed risks and are open to possible failure. You question colleagues' actions inconsistent with these behaviors. You are willing to be vulnerable in the search of truth and connection, and you give and take feedback to and from colleagues at any level. And so that's what they believe courage is on their team. That's what they believe that a team member exemplifying courage does. And I guarantee you, in their onboarding process and throughout their evaluations and the reviews, people are taught this. And they call out their employees they ask their employees to actually showcase other employees who are demonstrating this or who are examples of this. And if you do this in your organization and you get people to really put the company values ahead of everybody of their own, and you can do this by aligning core values, because people have their own values. They do things for their own reasons. But when they see that doing things for the company supports themselves getting what they want, they'll do anything for you.
Yeah. So, I mean, take a look at, I mean, the third and the fifth statements to me here are the most powerful. that they're giving permission, obviously in a respectful manner, to question people's actions, and it's at any level, right? Like, so hey, we're supposed to be courageous here, and this isn't just for certain levels. Like, everyone has the right to say, hey, Paul, what are you doing there? Because it doesn't kind of seem to be in line with what we're all about. Let's talk about this. And to me, when I think culture, one of the challenges I see with a lot of my clients is there are disconnects between levels related to culture. Like, oh, culture's for certain levels, but not others. Or certain aspects like courage is for certain levels, but not others. Those are really problematic. And I believe in our August seminar, we're going to talk a lot about problematic culture and how to fix it. But those two to me on this list, I mean, when you shared this with me, Paul, I was just like, this is cool stuff. And so, for the folks in the system here, whether you have courage as a character trait or not, I love the fact of how they define it for them. And how often do we do that? How often do we really define what that means to us, whatever that is?
And courage is just one of their core values. They had about 9 or 10, which is a lot. You don't need to have that many, but each one of them was broken down like this so that people knew how we act here. And I know Ed, with one of the companies that we've been working with, and you were talking about how the sales team, they were asking how could we get them to have a little bit more get up and go, right?
Yeah. It's interesting. And for those of you in the session today that maybe if you've heard this story, forgive us, but we got a lot of new faces in here. And so, yeah, we've got a client where, when COVID hit, they are a very public facing type of entity. And so they had to go a lot of virtual things. And so what has happened now is that their location managers and things don't like to go out to the customers anymore. They want to do everything virtually, or in some cases only when the customers come to their establishments. And so their brand, while it's not suffering in terms of the loyalty of their customers, it's not expanding anymore. And they feel like their managers aren't espousing this idea of being of service to the customers, being of service to the community, and being active members of the communities that they're serving. And they're sitting behind their desks. And so they're very concerned that their culture is taking a shift in a way that they really don't want it to.
And that's where I think revisiting your values, your company values, like, go find them and discuss with your team what it means to demonstrate these values. How do you do it in the context of your business with your customers? How do people on teams work together and demonstrate the values and create these statements? Because when people know how to act and they know how to use their common sense, you can count on them to make decisions. And then these values start acting as an invisible manager, somebody that's just in their conscience, looking over their shoulder all the time, making sure and scrutinizing that everything they do is in the best interest of the company and of all the people that work there. And then you don't have to do it, right? You don't have to be on people policing it. And you don't need policies for everything, because people are acting in the best interest of the company because they know it serves them. And so it comes back to those two promises, right? If you have a good culture, number one, and it's fun and it serves me to participate in the culture and I'll enjoy the experience, then people will do anything for you and they will stay and they'll tell their friends, come work here, it's great.
Come work here, it's great.
So I'll hand it over to you to talk about
so when you look at the things that Paul just shared and looking at those traits, and you're marketing those traits on your website, on your social media, in your job postings. Now I, as a prospective applicant, I'm getting an idea, what's it really like to work there? Like, it's one thing for you to say, okay, I'm hiring a receptionist and I'm a receptionist, and so I know what a receptionist does. And so most organizations, when they put the job posting out there, they put the job description. Well, okay, great. I know I'm going to be answering phones and greeting people as they come in and maybe helping out with some filing. And that's all that someone posts. But when you overlay some of these things that Paul just shared related to what the culture's like and what we expect out of you as just an overall employee, not just your duties, now I get an idea of, is this a place that I want to take my receptionist skills to? And so what we're doing there is we're saying, okay, we're designing an employee experience. And really what that comes down to is it's blending what I need as an employee and what the company needs in terms of results, and making sure that those two things come together so that I'm getting my needs met. And as I'm getting my needs met, I'm helping the company to get its needs met. Now, a lot of people, they don't quite understand the difference between, well, what's the difference between engagement and experience? So engagement is the level to which I'm buying into what the company's all about. So we sell widgets. I believe in our widgets. Therefore, I'm engaged in the company. But my employee experience is what daily life is like for me there. So I might believe in our widget that we're making and selling, but my manager's an ogre and the workplace is dirty and unkempt and I don't really have the tools that I need. That's a big disconnect, right? So I'm engaged from the standpoint that I like our product, but gosh, my day-to-day life here is just misery, okay? And that's the case of a lot of organizations. They got a great product, they got a great service, but people are miserable. And that's because their experience is horrible. And so we do get pushback, and Paul probably laughed when I say this about, companies will often tell us, well, why is it always about the employees? Well, because it's the employees that are going to make or break you, right? I mean, it's the employees that make the widgets, that sell the widgets, that interact with your customers. If we don't take care of them, they're not going to take care of us. It has to be what was it in science class, Paul? A symbiotic relationship, right? Where both sides benefit. It has to be that. And to the point that gets out of balance, something gives. And that's when good people start to look and say, maybe the grass is greener somewhere else. And they start doing research on where the grass might be greener. And essentially, that's what Paul was talking about, is posting out there how green your grass is. Let's start to attract people to your side of the fence. So, why should we care about this idea of what people and what their experience is? I mean, there are a lot of experts that say we are in the experience age right now. We've talked about that in depth a couple of months back, but ultimately, it's about ongoing positive experiences of our people. Now, that doesn't mean that the workplace is all lovey-dovey and we're all walking around happy all the time. But the reality is that the positivity in the workplace has to outweigh the tough days, because there's always going to be tough days, and people understand that. But it's the positive experiences that help me to get through those negative days and help me to say, you know what, this isn't normal. Today's a crazy day. Tomorrow it's going to be better, because it's just what my history with the company tells me. And so we have to plan out and make sure that we are managing the positive experiences of the workplace. And those positive experiences aren't just, oh, let's bring pizza in for the people on a Friday, or let's let them wear their favorite NFL jersey on Friday, or whatever it is. Those things are cool, and I'm not saying don't do them. But what I'm saying is that truly designing your experience of what people are living and breathing their 40 hours a week there has to be a business priority for you. You've got to think about what's it like to work in my organization. I was given a presentation on this to an assisted living group a few months back, and one of the ladies said, yeah, but Ed, come on. Obviously we hire a lot of LPNs and CNAs, and it's not pretty work. They're wiping people's butts. And I said, I get that. But when you go to nursing school to get your CNA or your LPN, you know what you're signing up for. It's not a surprise when I enter this, like, oh, you're asking me to do what? And it's also, I'm going to be doing that regardless of whether I'm at your organization or another. So it's not about the fact that it's the duties, right? A welder knows that job is going to be hot and dirty because that's what welding is. Okay, this isn't a surprise when a welder goes and gets his or her welding certification. It's about the organization and my experience working there. It's about the leadership. It's about the vibe. Yeah, those are the things that have to be a business priority. And so really, one of the first things Paul started out talking about was this whole idea of business processes. More, specifically what business processes are getting in the way of people applying. And now looking at the business processes that are keeping people from having the experience that they want. So I'm going to keep this organization nameless, but a major corporation that all of you here have heard about and have used their services, I absolutely guarantee it, has centralized their human resources function. And when I say centralized, I mean super centralized, to the point that 95% of what an employee needs to have access to is now supposedly online. The problem is when you go in to their online employee portal, it is so hard to find anything that you need, because there's so much out there that you can't find anything, right? It's the old adage of, you have cable TV, there's 300 channels and there's nothing on. It's the same thing. There is so much content in there that literally you can't find what you're looking for. You have no local HR presence because they've decentralized. So now you're calling an 800 number. And I have seen my wife spend an hour trying to get an answer to a very simple question. That's a problematic business process for them. And I get, as a major corporation, sometimes those kind of things, they're tougher than for those of us that maybe have a smaller organization that everyone's under one roof. But we have to look at those kinds of processes to see what's getting in the way of what our people are wanting and needing out of their day-to-day experiences. Lots of organizations have open door policies, and that's a good policy. But I hear managers complain, oh, I feel like I can't shut my door, which means I can't get anything done. Okay, so what does an open door policy really mean if it's getting in the way of that manager having time to be a good problem solver? So we'll be digging into those types of things in future sessions in a little bit more detail. But this is some homework for you out of this session, I believe, is looking at your business processes. What are things that are getting in the way of your people feeling like the grass is green here? And that I'm willing to fight through the tough days and the fight things, because overall, my day-to-day experience on average is really, really good here.
And that's something that that's really fun to find in organizations, because Ed and I, like, we'll get on the phone or get on a call with people after one of these sessions just to talk about, well, how could you attract somebody into one of those those frontline jobs or entry-level positions when it's the same as everywhere else and everybody's paying the same amount and the work's not that great or whatever. But there's always something a little bit different about each organization and how things get done there. And there's always a person that's going to really appreciate those unique factors. And it's not until we start talking to people and just asking employees in these roles, well, what's it like there? What do you really like, and what do you not like? Because then we learn about those business processes that are hindering the experience, and the unique factors that are really creating something different and exciting for the right kind of person. And we get an idea of how do we market those roles and really showcase your company as a really really interesting, exciting place for the right person. And that's why this HubSpot picture is up here, because they have an Instagram profile, HubSpot Life, for showcasing the inside of the company, so you can see what it really looks like
Mhm.
for an employee. And these are their employees. They're encouraged to post and share doing things at work, the fun, the interesting, the grueling things,
Mhm.
but everything. Just give us a real life version of what's happening day to day here. What does it look like? And what you end up doing is you create this desire for people
Mhm.
to want to apply. They even have, not only the open positions, but they ask you, check for, do you have skill sets that you think will benefit from, like, post them here, get on almost
Mhm.
like a waiting list for a
Yeah.
job that might open. So you get this candidate pool of people that want to work here, and we'll find something for you. And that's what creates that diversity that
Yeah. And I mean,
that you
that's a
can get.
great, yeah, Paul. I mean, it's such a great point you just made there. So often we post our jobs, and let's say we got 5 jobs open, and so on our website, the 5 jobs are listed. But many organizations don't have a way to say, oh, well, send us your resume here. And that's an old business process. That HR said, oh, we don't want to keep track of all these resumes. We don't got time to look at all this stuff. Okay, but do you want to create that almost scarcity mentality? Like, hey, if you want in, you're not quite seeing anything that we've got now. We want to hear from you. We want to build this relationship. Follow us on social media. Send us your resume a while. I know one of the things that Paul, you and I always preach to our clients is you see talent, find a way to bring talent in. Have the discussions with them. You know, Even if you don't have an opening, um, foster that relationship, because maybe that person will bring so much value that you can justify a new position for them. And I've seen it time and time again, where someone is just like they fall into your lap. You're not necessarily looking for someone at the moment with their skill set, but they're just so good. It's like, how do you not grab that talent when they want to work for you? And so, some of the larger companies, they've got a big social media presence, and if you're sitting there saying, well, gosh, I'm a one-person show in terms of HR or whatever, okay, I bet your marketing function has a social media presence. So piggyback on what they're doing with some people-related things. If you're out in the community helping, say, United Way Day of Caring, get pictures posted. Hey, here's our people out here working. Have your people posting those kinds of things. Have your people active on LinkedIn talking about the things that they're doing at work. Hey, just got to work on this really cool project with a client, or, hey, look at this. I just got a watch for years of service. I don't know, whatever it is. Encourage your people to talk about those kinds of things. So often I hear, and in fact, I heard it in the session I was conducting yesterday. Someone said, "Well, how do we keep people off of social media?" And I said, "Well, why would you want to?" you know Now, to the extent that they're doing dumb stuff out there, that's a whole different story. But in terms of telling the story of what work life is like, wow, what better testimonial do you have than your average employee saying, I just had a great day at work. Let me tell you what I got to do today. There's a lot of social cred right there. And that's the kind of thing that's going to demonstrate how your grass is so much greener than your competition's.
But it does
But
really come down to making sure that you are living by your values, and that your people know how to behave as one
mm-hmm,
of us, as one of our team. Because
mm-hmm,
if you don't have that, you don't want to set them loose on social media, like going off like loose cannons. Like,
right.
you really want to make sure that they're in alignment, and they're showing what a person from your organization does and how
Mm-hmm,
we are here. And
yeah.
if you have that trust in them, then you don't have to do it. It's your social media strategy becomes people. It's word of mouth again. It's
Mm-hmm.
grassroots again. It's just on a different platform.
Yeah. I mean, one of our clients, they not only have these still pictures, but they're shooting little videos. They've got people out in the field doing cool stuff with in the environment, related to engineering and scientific studies and things. And so, yeah, they'll put, someone will get on real, not nothing fancy, just their phone and say, oh, hey, it's Ed. I'm out here in the field and this is what I'm studying today. And I'm doing this and this is what I get to do. And that goes out on their company careers page. Doesn't have to be fancy. Doesn't have to cost a lot of money for professional videographers and all that stuff. In fact, I would say that the more real it is, the better it is in terms of the credibility and the way that if I'm looking there, I'm like, okay, I just saw Paul post that video and he's having a good time working today. How cool is that? So these are some things that we're going to talk more about culture in the coming sessions. And Paul's going to talk more in the coming sessions too about marketing that culture. We're just scraping the tip of the iceberg today. So where do you fall with all of this stuff is the real question. Ask yourselves these questions. I gave you a little bit of homework earlier in looking at your business processes, but now, does your business understand the expectation for the employee experience? Well, if I walked into your business right now and I started talking to some of your managers and I said, hey, what are you doing to manage your employees' experience today? What would they say? They say, huh? What are you talking about? My people are fine, but, and what do your people want out of the experience? So I would bring this up in your next management meeting. I would talk it over. If you're not in HR and you're in the room today, talk it over with your HR person. What does this really mean? What is our expectation for the level and the types of employee experiences that we want our people to have? Do you ask those types of questions? When's the last time you sat down and chatted with your people? And I mean chatted, not did an employee opinion survey, not had them fill out some survey monkey, but actually had your managers and supervisors talking to their people to understand what they want out of their work environment, what they want out of their 8 to 5 life at your job. Yeah, they want a good paycheck. Yeah, they want to be treated well. Yeah, they want a decent benefit package. Everybody wants those things. Anymore, those are the given. Those are the baseline. But what's the rest mean? And can we deliver on it? And if we can't, why not? And if we can't because of financial reasons, I get it, right? I mean, there's only so much we can do. But what we have to weigh out is, if we invested the money, what's the return on it? So anything that our people ask us for in terms of the work environment or upgrades or anything like that, is there a return on it? Are we going to get more production out of them? Is it going to help our recruiting by bringing talent in? Those are the questions we need to be asking instead of simply saying, we can't afford to do that. In some cases, I would say, can you afford not to do it? Finally, can you translate what your people want into sort of a unified vision, right? Of this is what we want people thinking about when they think about their work here at our organization. And this is the message we want people thinking about in the outside world. Because the reality is everyone's looking for people. And, I'm seeing the types of businesses we've got in the room today. You all have competitors right in your own hometowns, I'm sure. What are we doing to separate ourselves? We have this vision of people say, we want to be a best place to work. But what does that even mean? To me, it means you're taking care of your people and you're such a cool place that people are knocking down your door to get in. People are hitting, you're getting not just the raw numbers of applicants for jobs, but the high quality of those applicants can be measured. So this is your litmus test right here, I think, from today's session to really process and talk over with your management team. Where do you feel like you stand? And do you need help with these things to figure out where you stand? Most businesses Paul and I have talked to, they're not really sure. They're not sure the questions to ask to understand their employee desires. They don't know how to bring some of this stuff to reality, and they don't know how to market it. And those are the problems that we have helped numerous clients solve. So that being said, if before I turn things over for questions, I mean, if you've heard some things today that you say, gosh, I like what's going on, I'm not sure how to do it, scan this QR code quick. It'll take you to a link to book a no obligation free call with us, and we'll just chat and we'll offer some in-depth ideas. Maybe there's a problem you have you didn't want to share with the group today and you'd like some feedback on it. We're happy to do that with you. So Paul, if you'd like to make a couple of closing remarks, well, I'll let the QR code up here for folks. And then again, folks, while Paul's making his remarks, if you've got individual questions, go ahead and throw them in the chat room. I'll take a look at them.
Yeah, and we get it, challenging now to constantly have to recruit because people are coming and going, and there aren't you're having them, and it can be so busy so that you're just putting out fires and you can't get on top of these things. And the really interesting thing is that when you get this handled, you don't have to spend all your time putting out fires. So if you just need some help in getting your footing again in this new reality, this is where we're looking to assist and provide guidance. So if you want to talk about that, just set up a time and we will give you some direction, and if we can step in and provide a helping hand, that's what we're here for.
Yeah. So one of the questions that popped in was related to culture and the how do you identify the culture that you have, essentially was the gist of it. And I'm not as honestly as worried about identifying the culture that you have so much as identifying the culture you want to have and looking at the gap. I know there are people that'll say, oh, your culture can fit into all of these buckets and pick your bucket and all these things. And that's all well and good. I know, Paul, it's not really our philosophy. To me, it's all about how do you want to be thought of as an employer? And what are your values? Can you live those values? What does it mean to live those values? I think if you go back to that culture slide on courage from Netflix, can you look at your values and use those actionable words to let people know the behaviors that are expected? Those are the building blocks of a culture. So I know there have been times that I've been asked to do a culture assessment, and I say, well, I'm happy to do that, but why? Let's just figure out where you want to be, and let's figure out where the gaps are. And so to me, that's more important than worrying about defining your culture as it is currently. Are there any other questions? I know we're right up at the top of the hour here, and I want to respect folks' time. So we want to, I don't see anything coming in, but certainly you have that QR code. By all means, hit that up, or you can go to my website at crow.com, and right on the homepage is also a link to grab some time with us. Just specify, hey, was a webinar participant, want to chat with you and Paul, and we'll get you a time. But I want to thank you all for your time this afternoon or morning, depending on where you are. And I hope that you found that the information got you thinking. That's always our goal, is to get you thinking. And Paul and I hope to see you again next month, and we're going to talk about those 4 pillars. We're going to help you crush your competition. Until then, take care, everybody.
Have a great day.